Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Thira Panachari Yamuna Thira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Bharadhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Thira Panachari Yamuna Thira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakacharsha Astotra Sutta Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakacharsha Astotra Sutta Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananti Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaud Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kripa Sudha Sarid Yasya Vishvam Aplavayantyapi Nicha Gaiva Sadabhati Tham Chaitanya Prabhum Bhaje Kripa Sudha Sarid Yasya Vishvam Aplavavantyapi Nicha Gaiva Sadabhati Tham Chaitanya Prabhum Bhaje Kripa Sudha Sadidyasya Vishwam Aplavavantyapi Nicha Gaiva Sadabhati Tham Chaitanya Prabhum Bhaje Ladies. Kripa Sudha, of the nectar of the mercy, Sarit, river, Yasya, whose, Vishwam, the whole universe, Aplavayanti, inundating, Api, although, Nichaga Eva, more inclined to the poor and fallen, Sada, always, Bhati, is manifest, Tam, him, Chaitanya Prabhum, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bhaje, I worship. I worship Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose nectarine mercy. I worship Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose nectarine mercy flows like a great river, inundating the entire universe. Just as a river flows downstream, Lord Chaitanya especially extends himself to the fallen. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Koro More. He prays for Lord Chaitanya's mercy because he is the mercy incarnation, having appeared especially to reclaim the fallen souls. The more fallen one is, the greater one's claim to the favor of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One must only be very sincere and serious. Despite being contaminated by all the bad qualities of this Kali Yuga, if one surrenders unto the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord will surely and certainly deliver him. The best example is Jagai and Madhai. In this age of Kali, practically everyone is like Jagai and Madhai. But the Sankirtan movement, inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is still flowing like a great river, inundating the entire world. And thus, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is successfully claiming all fallen souls to free them from contamination. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda. All glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to the devotees of the Lord. Om Agyantimidandasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Milidam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jutha Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahakana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahakana Lalita Sri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Asindubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. All the devotees are requested to either turn off their cell phones or kindly put them in the silent mode.
Announcement can be as disturbing as a cell phone. But because it is offered with love and devotion, it's very pleasing to the heart. I worship Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whose nectarine mercy flows like a great river, inundating the entire universe. Just as a river flows downstream, Lord Chaitanya especially extends himself to the fallen. We are reading from Adi Lila, chapter 16 of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, text number 1 and 2. This chapter is entitled The Pastimes of the Lord in His Childhood and Youth. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami begins this chapter with a beautiful Sanskrit verse. Such great personalities as Kaviraj Goswami in one poetic expression of love can also reveal the innermost secrets on a very practical level of how one can access the grace of the Lord and thus overcome all obstacles in life. As long as it's not coming from Gorgopal, it's... Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is described his nectarine mercy. It flows like a great river, inundating the entire universe. Just as a river flows downstream, Lord Chaitanya especially extends himself to the fallen. This analogy of a river is very powerful. Wherever we go in the world, we find there are great and famous rivers that have been there timelessly. In India, countless rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Narmada, Kaveri, Krishna, Godavari, the Krishna Venva, and so many others. The Vara, the Nasi, Varanasi is two rivers coming together. In Europe, there is the Rhine, the Thames, the Danube, so many songs about all of them. In America, there's the Mississippi River. I still remember in school how to spell it, Mississippi. Also known as Old Man River. It just keeps flowing along. Whatever happens in the world, the river just keeps flowing. It was a beautiful song. The slaves used to sing it when they were in total desperation. Being exploited, abused, had no freedom. They said, the Old Man River, he must know something because he don't say anything. He just keeps flowing along. And then there's the Ohio River, there's the Missouri River, so many rivers. The Colorado River. That's where Chaitanya Prabhu lives, somewhere around there, I think. In South America, there's the Amazon River. You have heard of all these? So much of the greatness of a nation is known by what happens near the river. The whole Egyptian civilization was built near the Nile's River. A little lower, there's the Congo River. Most of the Western religions, so much history along the banks of the Jordan River. Last night, we were up till quite late just looking at the moon, the full moon. And we were thinking, this is Gaur Purnima, a very holy moon. And so many things change in this world, but when you look up in the moon, you see the same moon that people saw during Lord Chaitanya's time. Yes, Bengal is very different from what was Lord Chaitanya's time. Vrindavan is forever, eternally the holy abode of the Lord, but men have done a lot to Vrindavan. When Krishna wasn't there, there wasn't dharamshalas and restaurants and hotels and golf courses. So in Bombay, when I first came to Bombay, it was nothing like this. Very different city. So we change everything, but somehow or other, human beings have not figured out how to change the moon yet. So So when you look at the full moon, you see the exact same full moon. We're looking at it from here. Isn't it interesting that in Mayapur, they're looking up and seeing the exact same moon that we're looking at here at the exact same time? And anywhere in the world, when you look at the moon, same moon. And a full moon looks like a full moon, whatever, 5,000 years ago, during Ramchandra, same moon. But interesting is, what we see is never the same from one second to the next, because it's the light of the sun reflecting, yes? So the light is always different. So it appears to be the same, but actually what we're seeing is constantly being changed. There's so much to learn just by looking in this. And similarly, the rivers. Ganga, Mai. I was just in Rishikesh, sitting on the banks of the Ganga. And just thinking how the Aryans, during that civilization, and then there was the Mughal takeover, and then there was the British takeover, and then somehow or other India got freedom, and sometimes Congress is in power, and sometimes BJP is in power. So many things happen, but Mother Ganga keeps flowing. Like the moon, the surface is always changing, but the current beneath the surface is constant. The current of truth is constant, although the manifestations within this creation are in constant change. Nothing is actually stable even for a couple seconds. We may look at a big mountain and think it looks still, but on an atomic level, there's always changes happening beneath the surface of our mortal eyes. So much dynamic activity taking place, constant change. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is like the greatest of all great rivers. It is forever flowing and inundating the entire universe. Still, yegatamam prapadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. The Lord reciprocates with how we are willing to open our hearts to receive His mercy and to surrender. So the Lord can inundate the entire universe, and still the majority of the population may not take advantage of it. It's like in a desert. There could be beautiful, wonderful water, but if nobody's willing to go to drink it, that is the problem. And really, what is the Krishna consciousness movement? It's not creating the river's already there. It's trying to somehow or other persuade people. Drink from this water. People are so busy drinking the waters of the temporary materialistic satisfaction, striving after these things, mad after these things, spending so much time risking their lives to try to quench their thirst with the salted waters of material enjoyment. So we can't take any credit. We're not creating any rivers. Lord Chaitanya is already inundating the world with the river. But through knowledge and through our examples we have a chance of helping Srila Prabhupada and the great acharyas to just convince people this salty water that you're giving your lives to try to find, it's not what really makes you happy. Here is the river. Here is the Lord's mercy that has descended into this world. Just like a river, many, they begin in very high places. The Ganga begins in Gomukh, above Gangotri. Yamuna begins at Yamunotri, high in the Himalayas. The Godavari begins at, I believe, Brahmagiri in Nasik. You have to climb a high mountain to get to that. And they naturally flow down toward the sea. And the sea is like the level. When we evaluate how high something is, from a geological perspective, we say so much meters above sea level. So the sea level is like the bottom place. And earth, mountains, whatever it may be, cities, civilizations are built, different levels above that sea level. And these great rivers, they are always flowing to the sea, always flowing to that lowest place, naturally. And in a similar way, this is a universal principle. In the Bible, Jesus says, "The meek shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the humble in spirit, for those are the kingdom of God." Theirs is the kingdom of God. And Srila Prabhupada explains that when great souls talk about being fallen, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are fallen. It means that they feel fallen. There's a very, very distinct difference. We're supposed to feel fallen, but we're not supposed to be fallen. Because there are a lot of fallen people. But the river of that mercy, they're not accessing it. To feel fallen is humility. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is not just speaking it, but he's feeling it in his various beautiful expressions of his heart. One verse, he says that I am suffering due to material disease and with the symptoms of the boils of envy. And in this state I take shelter of the great physician, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. How many of you have had boils? Raise your hands high, please. Were they quite painful? Raise your hand if the boils were very painful. Very nice. Huh? What, Govinda, what are you saying? Boils is when you have in your skin pus and swelling and very much pressure. Anyways, when you have a boil, if you really have a bad boil, it just gets more and more and more painful until it breaks open and all the pus comes out. As long as the pus is in there. And the worst thing is if the pus doesn't come out.
If it goes in instead of out, there's a certain technical word for that, and then your whole system becomes totally toxic. I've had that too. You get fevers and everything. And sometimes they even, they may have to amputate your limb if your boil goes in, the pus goes in. But you're just waiting for it to come out. It's painful, painful. And even though pus is so ugly, it's really disgusting. It's thick and it's gooey and it's green. Swamis have these inclinations. It's just but still, it's like a celebration when it starts coming out. You're just waiting day after day. When's it going to come out? And you can't make it come out. It has to come out on its own. Even if you try to puncture it, if it's not ready, it just doesn't come out. Sometimes a week, pain, when would it come? And then it comes. It's the most disgusting stuff you could possibly imagine, but you're so happy to see it because it's coming out of you. So Kaviraj Goswami is giving a good analogy that envy is like boils, the worst possible boils. See? And they cause so much pain to the mind, so much pain to the heart. In fact, Srila Prabhupada explains that the basic principle of material existence is envy. When we want to be the proprietor, the controller, the enjoyer, it's a symptom of envy of God. And if we're envious inherently, then we potentially could be envious of anybody if the circumstances just are favorable or unfavorable, however we want to interpret it. Brothers, sisters and sisters, brothers and sisters, friends and friends, partners. We see in this world so much envy. In the name of God and religion, so much envy. We don't want to see. There was one, Oscar Wilde, I think it was. He said he said it takes a good man to sympathize with someone's suffering, but it takes a very great man to sympathize with someone's success. When somebody's suffering, we have a tendency to to really, feel very favorable toward that. But when somebody's successful, the tendency is to be envious of them. It's a very, very deeply rooted human tendency. And Srila Prabhupada, he just makes it so clear why we don't get it is a great wonder. Srila Prabhupada again and again, he defines so simple. He said, a Vaishnava means to be without envy. That's what it actually means to be a Vaishnava. It's not just about putting on tilak and putting on kantimala and folding your dhoti nicely and wearing your sari, in such a way that nobody sees your hairs. I don't know what they do, but it's not just about, carrying a bead bag around. All these things are very, very, all these aspects, it's not even just about doing your sadhana or following the 4 regulative principles. That's not what a Vaishnava is, essentially. Following the regulative principles, doing our sadhana, wearing tilak and saris and dhotis are all methods that are meant to bring us to the point of being non-envious. But being a Vaishnava means to be without envy. Because you can't love God if you're envious. They are total opposites, love and envy. They are the most opposite things in creation, love and envy. Hate is a symptom of envy. The root cause of hate is envy. So Kaviraj Goswami is explaining envy is like boils. They are the source of so much emotional, mental pain for the heart. Due to the material disease, he said, I am contaminated by the disease of material infection and suffering due to the boils of envy. So this material infection, the symptom is envy. And when we actually take to spiritual life, sometimes what happens is we puncture that boil and the pus starts coming out. The pus, which is the cause of the envy, starts coming out. And it looks really ugly. But if we don't like it, or we think, well, let me just keep it inside so I don't see it, then it only exasperates the disease. So sometimes devotees, after taking to sadhana bhakti, they feel more contaminated than they ever were before. It's not that you're actually becoming more contaminated. It's that the pus is coming out and it doesn't look nice. We have to just we just have to let it flow and keep performing our sadhana with good character. But interesting, it's because Kaviraj Goswami is feeling himself to be in such a state that he's sincerely, urgently taking shelter of the great physician, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you feel you're well and healthy, do you take shelter of a doctor? Dwarkadish Prabhu? How many patients do you have that really take shelter of you, that feel themselves to be very perfect health? 0. But when somebody really feels helpless and they can't do it on their own, then they really take shelter, do they not? It's humbling. Similarly, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes that I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madhai. If anyone hears my name, they lose their piety, and if anyone speaks my name, they become sinful. And he begins that verse by saying, I am lower than a worm in stool. That's quite graphic. I think that goes beyond the boils of envy. Because he was a Goswami too. Great Goswami. These analogies are very striking. They really hit you hard. It's not that we should just read it and go over it. We should meditate on it. What does it mean to think yourself lower than a worm in stool? You have to put yourself in that position. First of all, you have to meditate on stool. This is a meditation. There's all sorts of yogic meditations that the teacher guides you through. not going to do it in front of the deities too extensively, but a little I will. There it is, stool. I mean, not some plastic stool, real stool. Its texture, its flavor, its fragrance. I mean, you have to really imagine it. And then you are in this body of a little worm. You don't have legs, you don't have arms, you just kind of slither around, and practically anything you do, it goes, because the way you're slithering around, you go face first, right? Like now we walk with our legs, we have our hands, so our mouth is in a different place. But a worm, wherever he goes, he just goes face first, and everything goes in his mouth. And everything goes in his nose, if they have noses. It just, everything. And that's where you live. It's a low position, isn't it? He's saying, I am lower than a worm in stool. And what does he mean? The stool of envy, the stool of lust, the stool of anger, the stool of arrogance, the stool of all these materialistic qualities. The stool of attachment to so many things that just aggravate our material condition. He's seeing that as stool. And just crawling around, eating it all, smelling it all, drinking it all. And Srila Prabhupada, he gives the analogy too. He said, dry stool is very unpalatable for a hog or a worm, but wet stool is very delicious. That's the taste that they have developed. So in this state, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is Trinadapi Sunichena, Tador Iba Sihishnana, Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari. In that state, you just don't make aparads, you don't make offenses. Because actual aparads, there's minor aparads, and then there's serious aparads, offenses. A minor aparad is you accidentally touch a devotee with your toe. And you just, oh, I'm sorry. Or you may step over a person during class. We should try to avoid them, because it's very important to attune our consciousness to be aware of being respectful. But real offenses is when we actually try to hurt someone due to envy or due to arrogance. That is serious. That Krishna cannot tolerate. If we speak words or perform actions to try to impede a person's progress in life due to arrogance or envy, that is called the mad elephant offense. And the scriptures explain so much of the suffering that people go through are due to past offenses. And so much of what devotees have to go through is due to offenses. And the offense is considered, offense to a Vaishnava is considered a mad elephant offense. How many of you have encountered mad elephants? I was just in Rishikesh, and it's interesting, driving down from Dehradun to Rishikesh through the forest. Every couple hundred meters practically, or within every kilometer, I would say, there are big signs, amazing signs. And some of them are different, some of them, they have this gigantic photograph of a male elephant with massive tusks pushing over a car, the way a child pushes over a mango seed. That's what it looks like. A car full of people looks like a little matchbox compared to this elephant. And he's standing over it, pushing it over. And it says, beware of wild elephants. Everywhere, because so many people get hurt. Cars get crushed, people get killed. And as we're driving, the person driving, I said, do you see, because you drive this road many times, do you see wild elephants? He says, oh yes, so many times. I said, well, has any ever attacked your car? He said, no. I said, what would you do if he did? He just looked at me like, I hope they don't. Because there's nothing you can do. If they block your car, because they stand in front of it, and they block the road, what are you going to do? You know, you start backing up, he'll just, they just step on it, knock it over, throw it down a cliff. So I was wondering why they're having all these signs, because what are you going to do about it? But then I was thinking, you know, people could chant the holy name when they're driving. Sincerely, that's probably the value of the signs. But our farm community, Gokul Dham in Karnataka, His Grace Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, Madhava Prabhu, and so many devotees are there. They told me, one time I was there, and they told me that there's very, very clear water on the neighbor's farm. And we have an ox cart with a big water storage that we take there and fill it with water and then bring it back to our place, because we don't have that fresh water like they do. So at a certain point, the neighbor would not allow us to bring the ox with the big water tank. We'd have to just go there with buckets by foot, because he had a rice crop growing. And this time of the year, he wouldn't allow, because it would interfere with his growing of rice or something. So then I saw our devotees were going with the ox cart. I said, this is the time of the year, how is that? He said, because the rice crop of our neighbor was totally destroyed by an elephant. Now I'm getting to the point of the story, so be a little patient. One elephant, massive male elephant. The difficult thing is, because they're endangered species, if you kill an elephant, you have to spend years in jail. The elephant can do anything to you, but you can do nothing to the elephant. You could try to keep the elephant out, but how do you keep an elephant out? Of your rice crop, you have to spend crores of rupees building giant walls this thick. Otherwise, you know, you put barbed wire fence or a metal fence, the elephant just throws it away or just runs through it. There's nothing you can do. So the elephant, and they eat huge amounts of food. It's like Hastinapur, the city of elephants. In days of history, the great kings, it's a sign of great wealth that you could maintain a lot of elephants because they eat so much. They can eat, I don't know, 100 kilos. So anyways, this elephant was just eaten all the rice just when it's just about to be ready to harvest, just eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats and eats, just massive amounts, just pulling it right out of the ground. And then when he's totally overeaten, whole quantities of your rice crop, then he lays on his left side. And wherever he lays, he completely crushes and destroys the crops that are there. And then, he just starts rolling around and laying at different places, getting up and laying here and laying here. And whatever he lays on is destroyed. And then after he gets up, he starts eating more and more and more. And they come at night. And this elephant, in a matter of a few days, destroyed his entire crop of rice. And some years, he brings friends. So they told me that a little boy, about 8 years old, was walking, and he saw the elephant, and the elephant looked at him, and the little boy got scared, and he went, he screamed and started running away. And you can't run away from an elephant. They're really fast because they're so huge. So the elephant charged at this little boy and trampled him with his giant feet and pierced him with his tusk. It killed the child. And still, they couldn't do anything to the elephant. So a few days later, this was just on the property adjacent to ours. A few days later, I think it was a couple brahmacharis, they were walking, and the elephant saw them. The elephant charged at them in anger. He's a mad elephant. There's a time when these elephants, something starts exuding out of them and they become completely insanely mad and violent. In fact, years ago I went to the Columbus Zoo in Columbus, Ohio, and there was panthers and leopards and tigers and lions and cobras and vipers and snakes. And I asked, what is the most dangerous animal for the keepers here? And they said, the elephants, specifically the male elephants. Because you actually have to go in and take care of them. And when this stuff starts exuding out of them and they go into this mad state, it could happen at any time. He said, it's common that they kill the person who's trying to take care of them. And they're very, extremely strong. I saw at Guruvayur an elephant, a male elephant, wrap his trunk around a tree and uproot it and throw it. So this male elephant is mad and he's charging at these brahmacharis. And they're running as fast as they can, but the elephant is galloping behind them. And he's catching up speed really fast with the intent to trample them and stab them and just mutilate them. Very angry. He's screaming, and they're running and running, and they understood there's no way that they could get away from the elephant. And one of the brahmacharis, remember, he was brought up in a village, and somebody taught him when he was a child that if you're chased by a mad elephant, what you have to do? You have to find a hill and run downhill. It's the only hope. You can't fight. Can't pick up a stick and say, hut, hut. Even a gun, even if you have a pistol or a rifle, it doesn't work. For an elephant, you have to have an elephant gun. very difficult. Isn't it interesting? He learned this when he was a little boy, completely forgot about it. Only when he was in total desperation, he was praying to Krishna for shelter. He remembered this little lesson. It's interesting because it's like the elephant, Gajendra. Gajendra completely forgot about who he was in his past life and all that. And when he was in the crocodile's jaws and he was about to die, then the elephant, somehow or other, in that point of desperation, he remembered the prayers he learned as king of Jajuman in his past life, and that saved him. He prayed to the Lord, and the Lord came down, and he prayed with total humility. Yes? Gajendra, he prayed in total humility. He understood, I'm the king of the entire jungle, but now I'm about to die by this little crocodile. There's nothing I could do. He was exhausted. He had lost all his strength. He was humiliated in front of his wives and his children and everybody else. He was finished. And with total humility, he remembered these prayers and picked up a lotus and surrendered to the Lord. So these brahmacharis, one of them remembered in that state of the highest desperation that if you want to escape a charging elephant, you have to run downhill. And there happened to be a hill right on the left side of them. So they just jumped down the hill and started running, and as they were running, they were falling and rolling and getting up and running and falling and rolling and getting up and running, and the elephant charged after them down the hill. But because elephants' bodies are so heavy, they can't go fast downhill. If they do, they'll fall. And so the elephant had to go really slow downhill, kind of putting his weight backward as he was going. So they escaped. Thank you. And when I heard this story, I was thinking, that's it! That is it! That's the philosophy of bhakti. That's what this verse is talking about. If we want to escape the mad elephant of Vaishnava aparad, there's only one way to do it. We can't be on this, we can't try to outrun it. We can't try to overcome it. The only thing that works is we have to humble ourselves to take a very low position. When we humble ourselves to take a low position, we are protected from the mad elephant of aparad, of offenses. You don't make offenses when you're humble. And whatever offenses you've made, we can actually overcome the reactions out of if we take a humble position. It's like Jagai and Madai. They offended Nityananda Prabhu in their arrogance. And they offended so many others. And it wasn't by their intellect. It wasn't by their tapasya. It wasn't by any rituals that they could overcome it. It was only when they fell at Lord Nityananda's feet, and with a genuinely sincere and serious heart that Prabhupada talks about here, that they humbled themselves to beg forgiveness and to want to serve. They were completely forgiven. And when Madhai asked Nityananda that, I hurt you, but you forgave me, but what about everybody else I hurt? Nityananda Prabhu said, humbly serve everyone. Clean the bathing ghats of Navadvip. And whoever comes to those bathing ghats, beg forgiveness, and serve them with all humility. And build a new ghat with your spade to serve them. And whoever came before Madhai, he would perform his prostrated obeisances, he would beg forgiveness, and with all humility, he would serve them. It wasn't just a vocal thing, but he would build ghats for them, he would clean for them, he would carry their clothes for them, he would wash their clothes for them. He freed himself of all the aparads he ever did by taking a humble position. Trinadapi Sunicheta. And in that humble position, chanting the names of Krishna. This is the secret of success, and there's no other way. Sincere, serious humility in service. It's the only way to overcome our aparads and prevent future aparads. And it's the only way to call out the Lord's name in a way that He takes us serious. Krishna takes us... Krishna will connect us with Himself in any way we chant the name. But He'll take us serious to reveal Himself and really help us when we chant with great seriousness. And seriousness means humility, with a desire to serve. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally demonstrated, and this is what each and every one of his devotees personally demonstrated. The Lord is like a river, and the flow of that nectaring river of His mercy flows to those who feel themselves very humble and fallen. If you think you're very high, rivers don't flow upstream. Sometimes they do, but it's very rare. Rivers flow down. Have you ever seen a river flowing up a mountain? Naturally, sometimes, we have pumps with fountains and stuff like that. But a river, a big river, they flow down. So the nectarine mercy of the Lord goes to the low, goes to those who feel themselves lowly. They don't go up to those who feel themselves great. And that is the principle of Queen Kunti's prayer, Janmaishyaga. She says that those who are proud of high birth, high education, high wealth, and high beauty, they cannot call your name with feeling. Akinchana gochara. You are the property of the impoverished. And what does that impoverished mean? It doesn't mean you necessarily have to be physically in poverty, but it means you feel that nothing is mine. Akinchana gochara. Because after all, the gopis were supremely beautiful. That wasn't a disqualification for them. But they weren't proud of their beauty. Their beauty was just for Krishna's pleasure. It wasn't for their own arrogant enjoyment. And we read about great kings, like Yudhisthira Maharaj. After he was coronated by Krishna, he was the wealthiest man in all the world. But that was not a disqualification, because he understood all my wealth belongs to Krishna, and I'll use it to serve. He was in the most humble state. And we read about scholars, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami. They were the greatest scholars in the creation. They had such learning, but yet they were so absolutely humble. We read about Sanatana Goswami. When Lord Chaitanya called him for lunch near the Tota Gopinath temple, the Yamala Gardens, Sanatana Goswami was called. It was summertime, and it was at noon. The sun was blazing, and the sand was so hot, it was scorching. It was impossible to walk on the sand. And Sanatana Goswami, being a Goswami, he didn't have shoes or chapels. Not even the wooden ones that Govinda Prabhu wears. He was barefoot. And yet he walked on the sand. And his whole feet was getting blistered. And when he got there, Lord Chaitanya had already eaten prasad and was resting. And the servant Govinda gave Sanatan some prasad. And then Lord Chaitanya, he met Sanatana Goswami. He said, "How did you come?" He said, "I came by the beach." Lord Chaitanya said, the sand and the beach is like blazing fire. Your feet must be in terrible pain. Why didn't you come by the road near the Jagannath temple? And Sanatana Goswami didn't say anything. But you see, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is constantly reminding us of this principle of humility as the culture of a Vaishnava, non-envious and humble. So he's telling us what is in the mind of Sanatana Goswami. He knows because he's there. That Sanatana Goswami was thinking that I'm so fallen and I'm so sinful that if I go by the main road, then I have to go by Jagannath's temple. And the pujaris, the priests who serve Lord Jagannath, are always coming in and out of the temple. And if there's crowds, and if one of them were to touch me and then go in and serve the deity, then it would be such an offense to the deity that they touched me and then they touched the Lord or make an offering to the Lord. So I cannot commit such an offense or implicate anybody else in such an offense, so I can't go that way. How many of us are so refined and so subtle in our humility? Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they gave us the Hari Bhakti Vilas, yes? Which is describing so many technical principles of etiquette and rules and regulations for deity worship. But really the purpose of these things is just to refine our consciousness, to be so sensitive to what's pleasing to the Lord. Not to be callous. Not to be negligent, not to be whimsical. These qualities are a great disturbance to bhakti. But to really be here now at this moment thinking in terms, even on a very subtle level, what will please the Lord, to be immersed in that consciousness. That's what archana or deity worship is meant to make us do. The Lord is before us. And all the little mudras and all the little purifications and achmans and everything and all the little offerings we make is to tune us in to being so very, very sensitive at every moment, our every movement, to do it in a way that's pleasing to Krishna. Raghava Pandit. Lord Chaitanya was praising Raghava Pandit in Panihati because he always wanted to bring the best of the best of the best of everything he possibly could for his deity of Madan Gopal. And one time he had all these coconuts growing in his house, but there was a better kind of coconut that grew some distance away. And he had to go all the way to this place to get a more tasty coconut. He got some, and he clipped them, and what he would do, he would bring them into the deities, and he would give the whole coconut open, and the deities would drink it. And then he'd take it off the altar, and he'd scoop out the malai and offer that, and the deity would eat it. Very technical deity worship. And one time the pujari, as he was bringing the coconuts and the offering, he happened to touch with his finger above the door, and then he touched the coconut, and Raghava Pandit saw that and took the coconut and threw it over the wall. It cannot be offered to the deity. These are priceless coconuts that he went a long way to get. Why? Because he was thinking that, people walk with their feet on the floor, and if a breeze comes, it may take some of the dust that's on the floor and bring it up to the top there. And he touched the top, and then he touched the coconut. Therefore, the coconut can't be offered. Now, for most of us, we wouldn't think of that. And even if we did, we'd say, this is a valuable coconut. I went so many kilometers walking to get. I'll wash it in case any dust happens. But for Raghava Pandit, it's too late. Washing won't do. Discard it, throw it. Let somebody else eat it, not Krishna. And Prabhupada says that, you may think this person had some cleansophobia or something. There are people who have this kind of phobia. It's like a mental disease where they're always worried about germs. Yes? But it wasn't like that. He was just so deeply thinking, so tuned in to making things perfect for Krishna. So this was Sanatana Goswami's feeling, that a pujari of Jagannath may touch me and then touch Jagannath. So rather than take that very, very extended, remote chance, he walked a long distance of several kilometers with bare feet in the blazing sand, and his feet were terribly blistered.